Feels like almost a daily occurrence of late, waking up to the news that yet another family has been ripped apart by violence against women, as Australia's shameful death toll today rose to horrifying new heights.
Dead woman number 26. 49-year-old Emma Bates found killed in the small town of Cobram in far north Victoria, where a 39-year-old man who knew her has been arrested.
It is exhausting as a woman just having to watch this.
Thousands are living in fear every single day, and that's unacceptable in a country like ours.
Her story is achingly familiar. We've heard it already this year, 25 times before. This year's toll of women killed by violence, 12 higher than this time last year.
They've lost their life either at the hands of a current or former partner, or they've lost their life at the hands of a complete stranger who seemed intent on inflicting harm against women. This has to stop.
Number 25, 28-year-old mum Molly Ticehurst lost her life just one day earlier, allegedly murdered by her former partner, Daniel Billings.
And that 25 isn't just a number, this is 25 people who were loved, whose lives really mattered. Enough is enough.
Molly's body found inside her home in the rural town of Forbes in New South Wales.
We cannot hide like you can in the metropolitan areas. Everyone knows everyone and they know where everyone is.
Just 15 days before her death, Billings had been granted bail.
How this man could possibly have got out of jail has got me beat.
The charges against him: raping Molly 3 times, stalking and intimidating her, smashing her car window, breaking into her home and abusing her 12-week-old puppy in the 3 months leading up to her brutal death.
As a society, we remain ambivalent, and we often see this as a different crime to assault in any other context. Magistrates are no different in that. They carry their own biases and views.
The New South Wales Government today seeking legal advice to determine if urgent reform to bail laws is required.
There are serious questions for the New South Wales Government to answer as to how this alleged offender was out on bail. The system's clearly let down Molly.
We'll look at every measure that we can possibly take on these issues because we as a society just have to do better.
One woman in Australia is killed by her current or former partner every 9 days.
The fact that it's only April should be setting off alarm bells.
There are 251 days left this year.
We're joined now by Federal Minister Katy Gallagher. Katy, a lot of my female friends, they're feeling really afraid at the moment. You're the Minister for Women. What are you hearing about how women are feeling?
Well, thanks for having me on. I think, unfortunately, the women in my circle, the people I talk to, are saying exactly the same thing as you just mentioned. Women don't feel safe. All of the issues we've seen, or the violence that we've seen, particularly in the last month, but really, if you look at the statistics, it goes much longer than that. Means that young women don't feel safe, older women don't feel safe, and we have to have an honest conversation about how we confront what is an epidemic in this country, which is violence against women and often women and children.
It just strikes me as you say that there'll be men watching this who they hear that general statement but they don't really know what it means. Can you maybe explain what it means to say that women don't feel safe? Like, is it a day-to-day thing? Is it a moment-to-moment thing? Does it go up? Does it go down? Just put some flesh on the bones, I think, for people who can't access this.
Certainly as you get older, it changes. Some of, I guess, the more sexual harassment and stuff that you get when you're a younger woman, as you get older, that sort of leaves, but then there's other pressures, and I think people feel it about their ability to fend off something if it happened. How fast could they walk? How would they reach out for help? So I think it comes and goes, and when you're in a safe environment, it probably leaves you. But when you're out, and particularly out alone or out with young children, even that, I think that feeling of what's going to happen, how do I plan if something does happen? Am I safe? Should I park somewhere else? Should I go out earlier? I think that's something that women just live with, and it is a very different experience to men. And I don't know what the answer is about how we reconcile that, but part of it has to be that, I guess, an acknowledgement of that. and more, I guess, men taking a role in addressing some of it.
And part of that is bringing men into the conversation. So what would you say then to blokes who say, look, I'm not violent, this is not my problem? What do you say to them?
I think the really constructive thing that men can do is talk to their friends, is you know, when they're bringing up their sons, when talking to sons about what's happening at school, engaging them with what they're engaging with on social media, and genuinely intervening at that very local and very personal level, because I think men have, you know, often don't talk about these things, and probably because they think it doesn't relate to me, or, you know, it's not part of my life. But we know from the statistics that it's part of a lot of men's lives. So I think men have a huge role to play. I think many men want to play that role. I just think perhaps they feel alienated from the conversation because they don't think it relates to them, where it certainly does.
The Prime Minister doesn't seem prepared to call this a national emergency. Do you think it is?
Well, I think the Prime Minister has been very clear, and I mean, certainly I work with him very closely and I know how he sees this as a real priority, and certainly he and I have had a number of conversations about the complexities, because it isn't a matter of someone waving a pen or even putting in heaps more money. I mean, it's a much deeper and complex community problem. So not one government will solve it, not one policy will solve it. It's going to take a lot of effort from everybody, all governments, the broader community. And I think, you know, we all need to lean in and recommit to working out how we're going to deal with it, because we can do a lot of things, but we can't do everything. And, you know, this country needs, in a sense, to face up to what's happening here and how women feel in this country.
So you mentioned this is not purely a government problem, it's that everyone has a contribution to make, but government does have a role to play. What are you going to do?
Well, we've got our national plan, and that sets very clear direction. We've got all governments signed up to that, and that's to end violence against women and children in a generation. When I look at the amount of money that's going in, a lot of the money goes into dealing with the result, the violence against women. So whether it's escaping domestic violence payments that we now have as part of our social security system. We have paid domestic and family violence leave as part of our industrial relations system. So there's all of that we need to do. More resources, more support, make sure women are able to leave, make sure they're able to have control. But we've also got to look at how we're providing interventions and whether they're keeping up with what we need to do. So I think we always need to keep you know, policies on the table about, well, is this actually making a difference? And if it isn't, do we need to work out a better way of doing it? And we're deeply committed to it. I think the broader Australian community are like, you know, we need to deal with this and have that big national conversation. And, you know, if there's something that good that had to come out of I guess, all the media attention over the last week or so, I think, you know, that's a good start. The fact that we are having this conversation and hopefully trying to include men in that.
Got to bring those numbers down. It's a terrible tally. Katie Gallagher, thank you for your time.
Thanks for the opportunity.